Hey everyone, and welcome to Bright and Early, the podcast for people building early stage startups. I'm your host, Brian Ray. I talk to entrepreneurs, product people, designers, and marketing pros to learn what works, what doesn't, and why, giving you at least one thing to apply to your business first thing tomorrow. My guest today is John Eremic, better known online as Pliny. Pliny is the co-founder of Endcrawl. Endcrawl is a SaaS that manages and renders end credits for movies and TV shows like Moonlight, Halloween, and The Big Sick. After bootstrapping the business for 7 years, they have recently raised a $450,000 seed round with investments from Earnest Capital, their own user base, and other aligned investors. Pliny, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
It's really good to have you. You first came across my radar when you had this Medium post about the process behind raising that round. I just found it was so fascinating to me. First of all, it was really good writing. so kudos. Like you're clearly you're a great storyteller. It was also just super fascinating to read about your business. Can you just tell us a bit about Endcrawl and what exactly it is that you do for your customers?
Sure. So Endcrawl started, it was me scratching my own itch. I used to run a production and post-production services company called Endcrawl. Listen to me, called Off Hollywood. I ran the post-production side of things there. We did final post-production, things like color grading. We also had a digital lab making dailies for films that were shooting digitally, which when we started was still a bit of a novelty, but we kind of grew up during the time when film production and television production really shifted from analog to digital.
Okay.
And so end credits were something that just came across my desk frequently, and everyone always hated that process. Clients hated it, vendors hated it, because it's a complicated affair. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of names.
Yep.
It can get very political. There are some contractual and legal ramifications. And so it's kind of high stakes, and it's also just it's going to be revised 100 times. There's always going to be another typo, another fix, someone you've forgotten your special thanks. And our customers will see them typically still making revisions to their end credits 6 to 12 months after they premiere.
Interesting.
There are reasons
like needing to go back and revise
Yep.
the credits even after it's been out for a while.
Well, when I say the premiere, usually when a film premieres, it's a festival premiere.
Okay.
We think of movies, we think of the things we see in the theater, but that's really the 1%. And a lot of other films, most films that get made are indie films, and they don't have distribution at the time they finish. So they hit the festival circuit, try to make a sale. And what often happens is when you eventually sell your film to a distributor, you might have to go back and put 3 more names in there to name check the CFO of the distribution company that just bought your film.
Got it.
As an example.
Got it.
That's one example, but we see one of the busiest times a year for our render engine is the week after Sundance, when everyone who's been working on the movie nonstop for months on end actually sits down in the theater in Park City, Utah, watches their film, and sees 3 more typos on the screen. So there's always another revision, another fix, another something. And it used to be that you would round trip Excel documents over email with the designer, who would take a day to take all your notes, incorporate them into some comp, run it through After Effects. Chances are the scroll was sort of look jittery and bad, and we can talk about why that is. And so the whole thing was just like brutally slow, and it would invariably lead to overages. So I would have friends who told me, I went in with a $3,000 quote, came out with an $8,000 bill. Mm-hmm. And I understand why that is. This is just for end credits. Bigger productions can pay upwards of 10 grand for end credits. And I understand why that is. But I looked at it and said, I think this is something that can be automated for most films. A handful of films are going to want something bespoke, hand-drawn, whatever. But I'd say 95% of films out there need something like Endcrawl, or they need Endcrawl. Mm-hmm. And so I said, I think I can build this. In my hubris, I said, I think we can build it. I'm a sort of middling front-end developer on a good day. And working with a really talented full-stack co-founder has sort of taught me exactly what my limitations are. But I met Alan, who is not here today, socially 10 years ago.
Okay.
I ran the idea by him once, mostly to pick his brain on how I should approach my tech stack. And he gave me some ideas. 6 months later, he checked in with me. He's like, "Hey, how's that thing going?" And I said, "Well, it's gone nowhere."
Hmm.
So we went to a holiday party at a sound mixing facility, had a few drinks, started drawing stuff on napkins. Classic story. Talked ourselves into doing it. So
Yeah.
that's how we got
Okay.
started.
Is it still just the two of you, you and Alan?
We have a support team, a
Okay.
remote support team, but other
All right.
than that, yeah, it's just the two of us are building the product.
Okay. It's this is what I just think is so fascinating about your business and knowing that there are like many, many, many thousands more opportunities like this one is that you just described the process of of passing the Excel document, around
Sure.
email. And that's just that's the classic, classic use case for where there might be a business. But you were you decided to try to solve this with software, um, because the timing was right. The film industry was moving into digital, or had pretty much completely gone digital by that point.
By that point, yeah, I would say
Okay.
so.
Okay. Did you try, before beginning to build the software out with Alan, were you like trying to automate this and do it yourself before you got to the point of being able to do it entirely with a piece of, with a SaaS service? Were you doing like Endcrawl as a consulting service basically, or did you see the need and go straight to the software?
I saw the need and went straight to the software.
Okay.
I had a full-time job managing this post-production facility, and
Mhm.
credits were one.
Hey, listeners. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a connectivity issue there. Fortunately, we were able to get it sorted out and pick up our conversation right where we'd left off. Full time running the production services business when
Yeah, a post-production facility.
the post production facility. So how did you start finding your first customers, for when you did have a bit of a software product that you could begin to test or begin to sell? What was yeah I guess what was that the very early stages of that process like?
So I picked something that was already in the industry where I worked. So just having been in the industry at that point, for 10 years, I just knew a lot of film producers, and so I just went directly to them. I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" I posted something on Facebook, shared it to all my friends, threw up an ugly landing page, and
Hmm.
we were on our way.
And was it functional as a prototype at that point, or were you saying, "Hey, here's the landing page. Here's where we're going. So sign up
So
to get notified."
we didn't. It was that.
Yeah.
It was a sign up to get notified and sign up to request a project. What what we did at the time was I had written a really crappy Perl script that was about 400 lines of code or so.
Okay.
That pretty much was the MVP for Endcrawl.
Okay.
Perl, because I was an old school 90s web developer and that's what I knew. So the very earliest iteration of Endcrawl was I would share a Google Doc to a customer, say, here's the format,
Mm-hmm.
paint within the lines, and then whenever you need a render, which is a video output, just email me and
Mm-hmm.
I'll get you one. So I'd get an email, I'd take the doc, I'd plug it into my script, make an output, pop it on Dropbox, and send them a link. That whole process took about 15 minutes. They
Okay.
were used to it taking anywhere from 4, 5, 6 hours to a whole day. And so that right there was something that was of value to the customer.
Yeah.
My immediate feedback was, "Wow, that was fast, and I can get this anytime I want. And you don't charge me per output." And okay, so
Okay.
pretty quickly there was traction. There was definitely really positive feedback. We also charged from day one, which I think is important, and I would encourage everyone listening to the show to do.
Mm-hmm.
Finding out that someone would happily use your thing for free is not really useful information.
Yeah, not a lot of info there. Okay, so that is it standard in the the film industry to charge per revision or per output of end credits?
For end credits, usually what would happen is you'd go in with a flat quote, but after the 80th revision, everyone's exasperated, and then we
Yeah.
start talking about
Okay.
overages, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
at the very beginning, we said this thing always has 100 revisions, so we just want to bake that in. It's unlimited renders. You can make as many redos as you want, no penalties. It's just flat.
Okay. And so, and because for you, I mean, there's really not that much more, or if it's entirely automated anyway, there's no additional effort and a ton of value and reduction of risk for your customers that they're not accustomed to.
Correct.
Yeah.
The only thing that really costs real money in this type of business is
Uh-huh.
people and marketing. Everything else is kind of down in the noise.
Yeah.
So, yeah, having some hardware or some virtual servers on AWS just kicking out video frames is not the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
And
It's really no. Sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt
well,
you.
I wanted to also point out, my co-founder Alan and I, we really talked about this at the beginning, and we realized one of the core problems is these constant revisions. So if we had
Mhm.
based our business model on how many times you make an output, then we are disincentivizing our customers from actually using the product. And so we had a lot of conversations about this, and one of the things that we hold to is making sure that our pricing model is never at odds with the core user experience we're trying to deliver.
Right. Yeah. So like the more revisions they make and the the more often they see that only took 10 or 15 minutes that used to take a day, that's just reiterating your value proposition along the way. So why in the world would you charge for that?
100%.
Okay. That's pretty fascinating. It's hilarious also like that the MVP was written in Perl. um
It is,
like
yes.
yeah, and that there's just something like unconventional, counter to the the mainstream right now that just strikes me as as fascinating.
I don't
Um,
recommend it, but
no,
talking
well,
to Alan, when we were getting started, he encouraged it because
yeah,
it was a form of lean thinking. Like, am I going to go teach myself Python first and then
yeah.
write it, or am I just going to get the job done in something I know to get something off the ground?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like what is the fastest way for you to get to something where you would learn something new? Well, write it in Perl, not learn Python or Rails or something first and then pitch that. Okay, that's interesting. The other unconventional thing about Endcrawl is that you're not like you're not like deep in LA or San Francisco, right? Like, you guys are remote or what's
Alan
your
lives in
setup?
Salt Lake City,
Okay.
and I live in New Jersey. I split my time between home office and New York City,
Okay.
but yeah, we don't live in LA.
Okay. So like as a tech company serving, the film industry, it would make sense that conventionally anyway, that you would have thought to maybe relocate to San Francisco or LA. What was the thought process behind not doing that?
Um, well, I like where I live, I guess would be the first answer. So, one of the nice
Good
things about
answer.
having a remote company is ideally you can live anywhere you want.
Mhm.
Um, LA is important, and I travel there frequently now, but I
Okay.
don't need to live there.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's the short answer. As far as San Francisco, well, my VC, sorry, Tyler would not like being called a VC. He was very adamant about that. My lead investor currently lives in Rio, and so it's a remote world.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I don't think that either Alan or I would ever want to be in a position where we had to live in a certain part of the country or part of the world for our
Mhm.
business.
Have there been deals that you think you would have had a better shot at closing had you been located in one of those places, or have there been some challenges about working remotely that you've had to
Well,
overcome?
Well, I do live in right outside New York, so I do live in one of those places. I live in the second largest production hub in the country, so it's not like I'm running this business out of Alaska
Yeah.
just yet, anyways. But as far as challenges for remote companies, sure, there are 100 challenges. One of the reasons we really wanted to do this too, and wanted to raise the money and keep going, was to develop the superpower of being a remote company. Because when you are a remote company, there are all sorts of things that open up to you, especially in how and whom you can hire.
Mhm.
There are all sorts of challenges that we talk about daily, both in the Endcrawl Slack and the Earnest Capital Slack, about running remote businesses and how you stay in sync and how you manage communications. I could talk about that for hours. So I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole, but it is a superpower. I believe.
Being able to work remotely is a superpower.
Yes,
Yeah.
being able to function as a company, as a remote
Hmm.
company. We prefer distributed because there really isn't anything to be remote from. There's no headquarters that I'm currently working away from.
Yeah.
We just all work where we live, or we
Yeah.
work in some colo space or in a cafes or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I guess so. I'm curious. You have been bootstrapping this for 7 years,
Seven
right?
7 years.
Yeah.
Yep, which is a little
uh,
off script.
why do you say that?
Well, I don't think a lot of companies raise for the first time 7 years after they start, but
Yes. Okay.
I
And
could
that's
be
and
wrong.
that's what I'm kind of curious about. Like in the early, uh, when you had initially developed the MVP and had started to sort of shop it around. At what point did you realize, or did you begin to think, we are really on to something here?
Um, Good question. I mean, the initial feedback was great, and then the growth was constant, but we were on what's been described as the long slow SaaS ramp of death. I
Yes.
don't know if you're familiar with that or with that
Very
speed.
familiar. That has come
Yeah.
up multiple
Uh,
times here.
ooh, that that one really hit me where I live. I've
Mhm.
watched that whole presentation multiple times.
Yep.
Um, but we got to a point where we realized that to get to the next stage of growth, we really had to focus on it full time
Okay.
as opposed to just side gigging it.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
And
but I'm
had
sorry. Your initial question was when did we realize we were onto something? I don't know. I think we always did. And the fact that it just
okay.
didn't stop growing, despite us giving 5-10 hours a week to it,
Yeah.
was a big clue.
So and how long ago was it that you said that you thought, okay, if we really focus on this, then it can become our full-time thing. However, in order for us to be able to go like to truly focus on it full time, we need to raise some capital. How long ago was that?
That was last year.
Okay.
The Medium article that you referenced, I mentioned that the whole process took 9 months. That's from when we
Yeah.
decided to do it to when we closed.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, what we did was we realized that even though we really still love building this product and we love the small company and the culture that we built so far, um, we were going to burn out on eventually.
Hmm.
Um, and having divided attention and divided focus is very difficult. Alan would be hacking on Endcrawl once a week on Fridays, and I remember the conversation we had over and over again was, okay, today I got to first unload my other job from my mental RAM,
Yeah.
and then load in this, and remember what I was working on a week ago, and that might take a few hours till I'm back in the rhythm of things. And there's certain features that we really wanted to build, but we knew that they would require being heads down for weeks.
Hmm.
And doing that one day a week just wasn't in the cards. So our velocity was really slow, and that was just really frustrating to us. And there were certain things we probably just couldn't tackle at
Yeah.
all, just hacking one day a week. So
D-
we
Go.
looked at it. We have had the company appraised. We said, okay, what's the opportunity cost here? Could we just sell it now? So we looked at it. We considered it. We decided no, we can grow this a lot more.
Hmm.
And that's when we started. That's when we started trying to raise money. It was our first rodeo, so we had everything to learn at that point.
Yeah. Did you did you ever consider, or did you along the way outsource development, since you're only able to give it split
Absolutely
focus?
not. No.
Okay. For what reason?
So a couple of reasons. One is managing a developer still takes time. And I mean, you can have anyone, hack together some code for you, but really thinking through how you want your product to be engineered, it's not something that's easily outsourced. You can't just be like, oh yeah, just go hack this for me and tell me when you're done. That's number one. Number two, if you're a software company, which is what we are, um, outsourcing your the core thing that you do is probably a really bad idea. And I realize there are people out there who do this. Like, I'm a founder and I just outsource development. But I mean, if software is what you make, then that really should be a core competency within your company, and
Mm.
not something that you farm out to other folks.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on that. Um, okay, yeah, I want to give that a little bit of thought. Because
Sure.
I've looked at that in several different ways, where like the core thing that you're delivering is that it sounds like anyway, um saving a ton of time,
Sure.
and giving your customers as many iterations, as many variations that they want. Your customers don't really care who wrote the code or what the stack is, right?
No, they don't care at all. Um, and we can't do the normal thing that a lot of startups do, like write blog content about their tech stack or write blog content about being a tech founder. Like my
Uh-huh.
customers don't care about that stuff, right? Because
Yeah,
my
yeah.
customers are not
There.
don't live in that world.
Yes.
Um, so no, they don't. But we do, and we've been around long enough, and we've built our own products in the past,
Mhm.
and we know what it looks like to code yourself into a corner, and we feel pretty strongly about making sure that this is something we own and that we're not beholden to some consultants
Yeah.
when it comes to our code base.
Yep.
What my customers do care about is that when they click render, then they get a preview render in a couple of minutes, and they get their fully uncompressed 4K in like 25 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't think we could have gotten that outsourcing it. I mean,
Okay.
Alan is a world-class full-stack dev, so that's probably the main reason is I can't get better bang for my buck um, than my co-founder
Then your
working on my
co-founder. Yeah.
product. So yeah, if you're gonna
Yeah.
start a company, make sure that with a technical co-founder, make sure they're really really good.
And so now, because now you're in a position where it is you and Alan. If
Yep.
something happens to any piece of the code, then one of the two of you is going to be able to get in there and sort it out because you've written every bit of it along the way.
Yep, and a really nice thing about us is that there's a bit of a yin yang thing. I can keep up. We spend a lot of our times in PR. Sometimes we joke that we talk more in GitHub than we do in Slack or on calls. That's one of the primary ways we communicate.
That's
Um,
great.
and so we can have good conversations about about our tech stack, about how we engineer things, how we
Uh-huh.
scope features. But then Alan's also great at selling and pitching, and he's not the kind of developer you have to hide in the back room. He's often better than I am in front of
Okay.
potential customers.
Yeah. I want to ask a couple questions about raising your round.
Mm,
And so we've already talked about, there have been several things that have been unconventional about about Endcrawl,
sure,
writing it in Perl for starters, um,
it's a
uh,
long time ago.
and and not relocating yourself to some like tech hub, or I mean, even though you mentioned you are kind of outside of New York. But the other unconventional thing about how you raised the money is that you did it through like led by Earnest Capital.
Yep.
And one of the things that you mention in that Medium post is you say this: some things we didn't do. We didn't build a data room. We didn't reform as a Delaware C Corp. We didn't offer any board seats. But what we did, we built a pretty deck. We composed a tight one pager. We built financial models. Will you just kind of talk us through those handful of things? Like, why did you not do a few of those conventional things? Why did you do a few of the conventional things? And what did you learn along the way?
um, okay, that's a loaded set of questions there. Let's see. I'll just pull some things out of a hat. So you need a deck, so we made one of those. The one pager is really the only thing people generally read. I don't think I actually walked through that deck with a whole lot of people at the end of the
Okay.
day. Most of the people that wound up investing in Endcrawl did so because I had some kind of a conversation with them. Either they were
Mhm.
sold on it from the start and they were like, yes, I want to be part of this. And a third of that money, by the way, was our own customer base. So I didn't have to pitch them at all on the
The
product.
value. Yep.
Yeah. They already knew. In fact, one of my top angels, who was really the first one to come on board and then help me bring some others on board as well, reached out to me about a year before we started the raise and said, "Hey, I just use Endcrawl, love it. How can I invest?"
Okay.
And I just said, "Hey, that's great. We're not raising money right now, but thank you." And then I remembered that and I dug it out of my email history. I have no idea who this guy is. Emailed him, and he turned out to be deadly serious
Okay.
about what he said, which was awesome. Because you never know, it's random
Yeah.
people emailing you on the
Yeah.
internet, even if they're your customers. How much they mean something like that. So yeah, so we built the deck, we built the one pager. Sorry, what else did I say that I did and didn't do?
You said you did build financial models.
Yeah, so I think that's actually important. And I was struggling a bit because I had never built a full SaaS financial model before, and I was
Hmm.
sort of not that it was in it of itself hard to do, but I wasn't quite sure like what are the things that I need to focus on. Where am I over modeling? And it doesn't matter, just
Hmm.
plug in a placeholder number. And I came across a service called FlightPath, which we use today, and so far we're super happy with it. It's still early days, but it's been great. And they actually have sort of a financial modeling as a service. And what we got was not just that tool, but a lot of sort of collateral advice along the way. Like, hey, you're going overboard. Try to model this. There isn't that much variance there. Just plug in a placeholder number. You can always go back, zoom in on something, and then get more granular later.
Hmm.
That type of advice. Or what percentage should I put in here for like payroll taxes and benefits? I don't know. Like, okay, this much. Okay,
Okay.
the salary. It's advice like that. Just dumb stuff. And it's actually it resonated with me because a lot of our customers get the same thing. When they're working with Endcrawl, they're making end credits for their film, but a lot of them might be first-time filmmakers. They're indie producers. They're coming to us and they're saying, how do I approach this? Like, what orders do the credits normally go in? Some of them might have never done it before, or they'll be like, what should the output be? What are digital cinema standards? And we sort of help them with all that. It's not a core part of our service as such, but they get a lot of collateral workflow advice
Yes.
along the way.
Right.
And so I was feeling the same thing from FlightPath, and so we were able to build different financial models based on different adoption rates, and we wound up going with a leaner way where we decided not to hire up right away, but just take the
Hmm.
current team, make sure everyone is taken care of, has insurance, and learn to be a company, but now full time, working together every day, and then grow slowly. So, but we
Yeah.
build different models. I don't think any of my investors actually looked at models for more than a few minutes, but we were able to show that we had done that work and actually thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And was it an an asset that you had been at it for, that there were so many years of financial data to draw from? Or was it a little bit, did you ever get any pushback of like, hey man, you've been at this for 6 years, aren't your annual numbers better? Was that an asset or a liability along the way?
Um, I both, but I think in the end it just helped us to separate, the people who are going to be our partners from the ones who are not. If people had serious
Mm.
reservations about like, well, why aren't you multimillionaires after side gigging for 6 years? Then cool, then they probably weren't the
Yeah.
right investor
You're
for
not a
us,
fit
right?
for us. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
exactly. But luckily we had pretty solid fundamentals,
Hmm.
and we were able to make the case, which I think is the correct one, that you know we could grow a lot faster if we can actually focus on this full time.
Yeah. What is the we need to wrap up here, but I'm just kind of curious,
Sure.
like what is there a larger vision for for all of the components of making films that Endcrawl could improve with software that you've got your eye on? Or
Of course.
and are you dead set on growing end crawl specifically to do end credits? Or no, there are many different components that we're going to end up writing software for and attacking those?
So,
How are you thinking
so
through that strategically?
someone observed, and I don't know who I'm plagiarizing here, so forgive me, but the tech companies that succeed aren't the ones that make the best tech, the ones that build the best distribution pipelines. And one of the really interesting thing about Endcrawl is we interact with thousands of productions. I don't know any other
Hmm.
company in the world that interacts with film and television and new media productions at the scale that we do. And so what we're building is our touch points to thousands of content creators and tens of thousands of productions and projects.
Hmm.
There are all sorts of other adjacent products that we could deliver through that distribution pipeline. And that's what we're really building right now.
Hmm. That's really fascinating. Pliny, where can listeners find and follow you online?
They can reach me on Twitter at I am Pliny. That's IAMPLINY. My co-founder is Alan Grow, ALANGROW, and they should also follow Tyler Tringus and Ernest Capital. We didn't get a lot of time to talk about them, but I think Ernest is a fascinating company. Obviously, they've been hugely supportive of us. And if there are founders out there who are looking for an alternative to how they might fund their company, they should definitely check out Ernest.
Yeah, no doubt. And if that resonates, just scroll back a handful of episodes. Tyler was on the show.
That's right. I forgot he was.
A few episodes ago. Awesome. My guest today has been Pliny. Pliny, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All right, let's take a few minutes, do a couple of closing thoughts here. First thing I want to say off the top is that there will not be a new episode next week. I'm going to take a week or maybe even 2 off and just get caught up on some things. And I'll promise I will be back with more guests and more episodes coming your way very soon. Just going to take a week or 2 off here. So let's see. I really enjoyed that conversation. I just think it's so fascinating. Their business, this successful little thing inside of this niche niche market that I wouldn't even have thought to exist, despite the fact that I've seen end credits roll thousands of times over the course of my life. The idea that a software company can come along and say, hey, that thing that usually takes you 4 to 6 hours, maybe even sometimes an entire day, we can knock that down to about 15 minutes. How's that sound? Thought that was fascinating. And so also Pliny was also sure to mention charging from day one is really important. Like the idea that I think it's a tight little quote, to keep in mind. Finding out that people will use your service for free is not information. And so that's just obviously that's definitely not somewhere that you want to start. So charging from the get-go. It's the other really fascinating piece of their business and the value that they are offering is that now that the service is automated, offering unlimited revisions or virtually unlimited. I can't remember actually now if he said they get 100 revisions or if they literally get unlimited revisions, regardless. Offering that to their clients, just it positions them so well. They are so differentiated against the current status quo. It just eliminates the anxiety of their potential customers who are, they're stuck in their current situation. They've at least got it, they know what they're going to do. You got to, send an updated Excel document over to, so-and-so, and, a day or 2 later, you're going to get the new render. That's painful. It'd be great if we could get it back faster, if we could do a whole lot of them. But, I don't know, is the new thing going to be any better or any easier? And so they're being pushed away. They don't like their current situation because it takes so long. But I don't know. Is this new thing worth it? And for Endcrawl to be able to say, yeah, no, come on over here. This is definitely gonna work out for you. And hey, just so you know, you get unlimited revisions. You don't have to worry about it. It's not like you're gonna have to learn some new piece of software. And you got to get it right the first 3 times. Otherwise, we're going to ding you again for another, X dollars. It's like a built-in, piece of value that is so solid for them. And it reinforces it. Like, I'm sure Endcrawl probably wants their customers to make 1 revision per day. And for the customer then to get better and faster with the tool, and just becomes like a habit, becomes part of their everyday integral workflow. I'm sure Endcrawl is more than happy for customers to take them up on all of those revisions. Yeah, come back as often as you would like. Please continue to see how much time this saves you and how wonderful this is. That's really great. I wanted to the bit about remote work as a superpower. I definitely wanted to go down that rabbit hole with Pliny. I've just been thinking about remote work a whole lot recently, talking about it. If any of you are following me on Twitter, then you know that I've been thinking about this and talking about it, and I'm even working on developing and doing some discovery on a product for remote teams, a remote tool for remote teams. And so that I've that I'm thinking about that and definitely want to go down the rabbit hole. That would need to be a specific topic for another episode, and so just needed to stay on topic. There were some other things about Endcrawl's business that I really wanted to talk about with Pliny. One of those things being the concept of they did work on it for years as a side project. And could they have gotten where they are a little bit faster by outsourcing pieces of it? I don't necessarily agree, but I like that he was so opinionated about the approach to outsourcing, and absolutely not, under no circumstances did they consider it. This software is our core. It's our core offering. It needs to be our absolute core competency. We need to be able to get in there and respond and make those changes. So I think that is a perfectly rational and defensible approach. And I think if there is a piece of it that I do disagree with, it would be that there's like this. What's the right way to think about this? I guess maybe kind of a spectrum, or I can't think of the exact right visual here. So if it comes to mind for you, hit me up and let me know. But the idea that along, if you're side hustling, if you're bootstrapping your thing, then at some point you are going to be waiting on somebody. You're either waiting on yourself, because this is the position that I'm in. You're either waiting on yourself because you have your full-time salary job, or you are, if you're self-employed, then you're, probably, hopefully, spending your full time on client work. And so who are you waiting on? Well, you're waiting on yourself to find the time to continue to invest in the product, to improve it for the customers that you do have, or get it in front of anybody, period. So the trade-off there is, all right, I can outsource this. What is my core product, my core offering? I can outsource this to someone else, so that now I'm no longer waiting on myself. I'm waiting on them. But you know what? They're going to get to it faster than me. Trade-off is, at some point down the road, I'm going to end up rewriting 90-something, maybe even fully 100% of everything that they have done. I'm willing to make that trade-off because it gets me to what I need to know faster. Eventually, though, when it is your full-time thing, when you have customers in it, and somebody needs an urgent has an urgent request, or needs a bug fixed, or something is wrong, well, then if you're not the full-time developer, if you're not able to get in there and make the changes yourself, and you're waiting for a contractor, then even waiting for a day or 2 days is way too long. And so I feel like that's I don't know, that's just the important trade-off to think about and understand there. I don't want to forever outsource my core competency, no doubt. But who am I going to be waiting on longer right now? And at the point at which you are waiting on an outsourced developer or contractor, when you're waiting on them longer than it would take for you to set the time aside to do it yourself, at that point, outsourcing no longer makes sense. I think that's how I see it. That's how I'm thinking through it. It could definitely be wrong. Let me know what you think. As always, love hearing from y'all. Let me know what you're thinking about the show. Is there anybody you would love for me to reach out to and have on the show as a guest? You can find me on Twitter. I am BRhea. That is BRHEA. You can also go to brightandearlypodcast.com. Subscribe there anywhere you listen to podcasts. As always, thank you so much for listening. I will not talk to you next week. You'll probably hear from me the next week or the week after. Regardless, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.